Hey YouTube, Coppersan here. MapleStory Korea just dropped a huge balance update, resulting in buffs for most classes, but also some nerfs for others. Some of the changes include that wind archers can finally walk with their hurricane skill, buffs for best class Paladin, and nerfs for bowmaster their blood arrow. Additionally, this update completely removes the reboot server's unique features and makes the MapleStory Korea reboot server just like any other regular server, auction house included. Am I happy we're not following KMS in that direction? Anyway, as always, these are test server changes, so some changes might still be made before they hit the live server. Please keep this in mind. I divided this video into different parts, I think it's going to be two, as there just are too many classes and not enough time in my day. In this video we're covering the common class changes, the explorer classes and the Knight of Cygnus. So the skill changes, there are some common changes that I'll cover first. For example, all Maple warrior-like skills will be turned into a passive buff. Similarly, decent speed infusion and decent advanced blessing will be turned into passive. That's a huge buff for anyone's keyboard. The Goddess Blessing skill preparation time for all Goddess Blessing like skills will be reduced to 120 seconds, and a new common 5th job skill will be added, which Google translates as Useful Holy Fountain. Basically giving everyone Bishop's Holy Fountain skill, judging by the description. And finally, a ton of classes will get some small movement speed buffs. Starting this video off with the Explorer Warriors, all three classes have their upwards jump action delay reduced by about 35%, which will help get rid of that clunky upwards jump feeling. The Explorer hero has gotten a nice increase in damage on some of their skills. Rising Rage, their hyper skill, got buffed. That includes its base damage as well as the 6th job buff. Their other hyper skill, Cry Valhalla, attacks monsters periodically when active. The damage of these attacks was increased by a good chunk. And their already very powerful instinctual combo 5th job skill wasn't safe for a buff either, slightly increasing in damage this update. And FYI, all the damage percentages shown in this video are at max level. Do keep this in mind. Next up is best class Paladin. Their bossing skill Blast has gotten a buff and will now deal more damage. The same goes for the 6th job version of Blast. Enemies hit by Blast get a stacking debuff that explodes after 5 stacks, dealing damage. The damage of this Divine Judgment was increased by a good amount as well, and again the same goes for the 6th job buff for this skill. Their 5th job skill, Divine Echo, links the Paladin to another player, causing the Paladin's attack to pop out at the linked player as well, acting as sort of their shadow partner, and the linked player receives the buffs that Paladin casts on themselves as well. One of these buffs, Divine Blessing, increases the user's final damage by 20%, however, now the linked player will only receive a 13% final damage increase, nerfing this skill. For at least someone else. The Grand Guardian skill received numerous changes. Besides a good damage increase and faster burst, the movement slow that you get when using the skill will be gone. I actually love that. And there is now a function added to Mjolnir, your 5th job hammer throwing skill. Using the skill with the down key allows you to throw all hammers at once, great for when you need more burst or just when you want more hammers on the screen. Additionally, the skill damage was increased. And finally, Falling Justice, the giant hammer that attacks as part of your 6th job skill mastery, was buffed and now deals a bit more damage. Sorry, I have no footage of that as my Paladin is only level 232. Then the Dark Knight of Darkness. My translator translated this skill as Dark Synthesis, but I don't think there is such a skill for Dark Knight, so I think this is actually Nightshade Explosion, but hey, apologies if I'm wrong here. But if I'm not, then this skill has indeed been buffed and a feature was added so that it can be used without casting when using the 5th job skill Spear of Darkness. The 6th job version of this skill was buffed as well. The Revenge of the Evil Eye skill, where your cute floating eye attacks every now and then, was buffed quite a bit, similar to Evil Eye Shock 3, which has gotten a significant boost in damage. Fangblade would be very happy to see this. But wait, there is more. Spear of Darkness got buffed as well, dealing even more damage, but another feature was added that only a maximum number of attacks can be made on one enemy. The Darkness Aura was modified too, to deal a little bit less damage and trade off with some quality of life it seems. Calamitous Cyclone has had its key down damage reduced, but the finishing attacks damage was more than doubled, increasing in lines as well. Fire Poison Mages get some lukewarm changes, just one, increasing the duration of their damage over time debuff on their teleport mastery. Yeah. Icelandic Mages on the other hand, they're quite hot. Your iframe and stun freezing breath skill has had its max duration decreased, but the cooldown has been decreased as well. The hyper skill Lightning Orc has had its key down duration reduced even more, and a significant change was made to the end delay. The 5th job skill Spirit of Snow deals an additional line of damage. Nice. And the 5th job skill Jupiter Thunder gained a good damage buff as well. Overall, pretty good news for the Lightning Mages compared to, I don't know, Fire Poison Mage or Bishop, because there are the Bishops and they received a lot of changes and some nerfs to their supporting skills. They lost the debuffs on Angel Ray and Bahamut, but instead they now get a final damage buff passively from their mastery skill. And I think I found the right skill here because the patch notes in the Korean that I translated mention Angel of Libra, which I think is one of the Angels of Balance. When the skill is active, you increase your party member their damage. However, this damage increase is now capped, down from a maximum of 100% to a maximum of 40%, which is quite a lot. Similarly, Benediction got nuked by Nexon. A feature was added where the final damage increase applied to party members is reduced in proportion to the number of party members that you have, and now more int is required to get that final damage increase going. Plus, the final damage increase itself is now capped at 30%, down from 40%. The skill does last longer though, so it ain't all bad. Bowmasters got sniped as well. Their powerful blood arrows that gave them so much healing. They could easily tank any boss. They have gotten quite a hit on that one and it doesn't look good. The chances of healing and the amount of healing was reduced, especially the amount of it was hit quite a bit. But there is also good news, as Armor Break and Quiver Barrage will now give you a small final damage passive buff. Sadly, Nexon is keeping their secrets and they don't mention in the patch notes exactly how much was added. They tend to do that, unfortunately. Next is the Marksman. The focus on debuff on enemies now lasts longer. The 5th job skill Perfect Shot has had its damage increased, and so has Split Arrow and Repeating Crossbow Cartridge. And to round it up, their Searchable skill got buffed damage and hits, however the cooldown was doubled as well. Additionally, for Marksman, the following 6 job mastery skills were buffed, which looks like some pretty solid buffs for this class if you ask me. Pathfinders, I'm not too sure about the changes here. Curse Weaver gives a 4% critical damage buff for each stack of curse debuff that you apply, but this was lowered, halved actually, and the critical damage that you get from the Ancient Bow Expertise passive was removed. However, you do get a final damage buff added to this skill passively, so perhaps it all ain't that bad. Additionally, Obsidian Barrier now deals an additional line of damage, and all forms of Relic Unbound have had their damage increased. So that's pretty rad for this edgy archer. Night Lords were also made a bit stronger, clearly they needed it. Their Dark Harmony passive will get a final damage increase. Shuriken will deal slightly less damage, but will deal more lines of damage, which seems like a buff to me. And Dark Lord's Omen has gotten a huge jump in damage and attacks, but keep in mind that the cooldown for the skill was also increased from 60 seconds to 90 seconds, which is quite hefty. Perhaps better for their burst rotation, question mark. Shadower, Dagger Mastery, boom, final damage added. Sonic Blow has had its action delay reduced by half, making this skill a lot smoother. And both the 5th job skill Trick Blade and Slash Shadow Formation has had their damage increased, giving this class a slight buff, which is always nice. Dual Blades are also getting an interesting change. They're getting a dedicated up jump in 2024. Whoever saw that coming. Their passives, Venom and I think Shadow Melt, will give a passive final damage buff now. Their hyper skill Asura's Anger was changed to make it a lot shorter now, dealing more lines but less damage. Similarly, 6th job version of this skill was adjusted, and a similar change was made to their 5th job skill Bladestorm that now lasts shorter and deals less damage but has more lines of attacks. Hoist the sails though, because Buccaneers are setting out to get some buffs. Raging Serpent Assault now deals 420 damage, nice. Additionally, their big spirit bombs have gotten a huge increase in damage. Buccaneers are getting a big boost it seems, going to melt those bosses even faster now. Similarly, the Crossair has gotten a ton of buffs, including a really nice quality of life change. They can now jump while using rapid fire. Also, this attack now deals more damage, and so does the 6th job version. Nexon doesn't seem to know what they want to do with Brain Scrambler. This time the skill's been buffed to deal a bit more damage. The 5th job skill, a Bullet Barrage, now lasts even shorter but does its damage more condensed, and the cooldown was increased as well. Nautilus Assault just got a nice big damage boost, and so has Death Trigger. Some quite nice changes for this class I think, which are well needed. Strangely enough though, there were no changes for the monkey-loving Cannoneer besides some basic speed changes that every class had gotten. Truly, Cannoneer is the most balanced class out of them all. Those are all the Explorer classes, onwards to the Knight of Cygnus. Dome Warrior has had just one change. The passive hyper skill effect that reduces element resistance will be removed and replaced with a final damage buff. Not sure how much final damage it gives, as the patch notes again don't really mention that. Mule mains also are in for a treat. Their Sword Mastery passive now increases their final damage even more, and the final damage buff that Rolling Soul gives when it's active has been removed and instead has been made into a passive so that you always get that buff regardless if the skill is on, yes or not. Their shield summon got its cooldown lowered from 30 to 10 seconds, which is great. The amount of hits on their Sword of Light 5th job skill was increased and Radiant Soul was buffed. Now whenever you activate the skill you get max stacks of Royal Guard, and a new function that increases final damage when the skill is active will be added, but the skill will no longer boost your attack power. That and also the damage and damage numbers of the attacks with the skill were buffed. Niels is probably their favorite Knight of Cygnus, I think that's confirmed. I also know who Nexon's least favorite Knight of Cygnus class is, the Blaze Wizard obviously. Their elemental debuff that monsters would get from getting hit with their Foxfire orbital mode skill was removed. However, they did not get anything back, so no final damage increase or anything like that. Just nope, it's gone now. So out the window goes their party contribution. And to make things even worse, their big burning pizza circle increases the damage to your party members. However, this amount of damage increase has been lowered for your party members, which sucks. It's not all bad though. Savage Flame has had its damage increased for both animal modes, and Salamander Mischief also got its damage slightly increased. Nothing too groundbreaking, and I think most Blaze Wizard mates will be quite sad with the changes that they are outlined right here. But you know what's even better than being nerfed? Being forgotten. There are absolutely no changes for the Nightwalker. Next is the Wind Archer, and oh boy, they can finally move with their Hurricane skill. Finally, after more than 15 years. I don't know if that's true, if that's 15 years or not, but doesn't matter, that's how it feels like. Nexon introduces the technology that we can walk with our Hurricane skill. The best bossing mule just got even better, and that ain't all. They're also getting more final damage passively. Song of Heaven, your Hurricane skill, also got an increase in damage, you know, to celebrate the ability that you can now use your feet while firing off this skill. The same goes for the 6th job version of this skill. Storm Wind will now have an even higher chance to create arrows and do more damage. Merciless Wind now deals a little bit less damage, but deals more lines of damage, so I think that's pretty good overall. And their Vex skill, Vortex Spear, now deals more damage. Huge changes for the Wind Archer, can't be more happy for my green boys. And finally, the final class of this video is the Thunderbreaker. Their Shark Torpedo skill got a small boost in damage, and so does their Lightning Spear Multi-Strike, which has gotten some decent buffs across the board. And those are all the Explorer and Knight of Cygnus changes for this test client. I'll cover the other classes ASAP because there's a lot more. Of course, I'll link the patch notes in the video description in case you want to check it out yourself. Overall, I would say this balance update is pretty solid, besides a few, in my opinion, quite undeserved nerfs. Looking at you, Blaze Wizard, I don't think they deserve that. This update will most likely get released either early next year, or maybe it's already part of the winter update. That could also be a possibility. Let's see which route Nexon takes. Stay tuned for part 2 with the other classes. Thanks for watching, and special thanks to our members making these videos possible. Special thanks to Niels de Coninck, Raar, Maar, Waar, Sebastian Hanøy, Caudimorda, Wiley, BackSpaceOTI, Ziggy, Flidiot, Knivesu, Cloudfix, Michael, Menchaca, Raythius, Betrayal1489, Sylvio, Neto, StrikerElk, Ryaiser, Aryu, PCGAMELIFE, The Passenger, maxBurnHeart, ScottyFlysFast, Only, Lordvasile, Spatsy, Dante Victory, Snuffupop, Quinn, Dewey Tran, Vake Botnet, Megu, The Wolf Drake, Matthew Def, Groggo, Gabriel Eck, Kani Wu, Max Mink, and Domi Kirch-nehammer. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe and happy mapling!